Today we're just thinking about conversations and having honest conversations with those people who you call your friends or your spouse. Your spouse is supposedly your friend, I hope. And how do we actually go about having these conversations and the importance of having honest conversations with each other? I think, like Jill was just sharing now, that often it is so easy to talk to your friends about something that you should have actually been sharing with your spouse first. And how does it actually go down when you actually eventually share it with your spouse? I mean, maybe you're trying to look for guidance or solidarity with your friends, but your spouse is actually the one who you're living with, and actually you should be sharing first there. So Joel, just elaborate a little bit more on that thought that you were having.
So I watched the interesting podcast. Well, I've been watching interesting podcasts over the last 2 weeks, and the latest one I watched was one famous person, Mel Robbins. She was interviewing an author, and this author was speaking about in terms of relationships and friendships. And if we look at marriage, for example, we are taught we know to undo a marriage, we get divorced. But when we walk away from friendships or relationships, otherwise, we just kind of ghost people. We don't really have a formal discussion where, as a marriage is dissolved in paperwork, these attorneys, and it's ended. But for friendships, we just walk away and we walk away with trauma. And so basically, this lady said a relationship, friendship has three ingredients. For those people you truly call your friends, there's basically three elements it will always have. It needs to have symmetry, there needs to be support, and there needs to be secrecy. So symmetry meaning that in the friendship you are or relationship you are with this person, that you think the same, we're not competing, we want the best for each other, which I would say is our marriage. I want the best for you, we're not competing, you accept who I am, I accept who you are. And then in terms of support, there's a physical support in terms of Cam knows if he calls me now, I'm going to come. If he needs anything from me, I'm going to stand in the gap. And I've got a few girlfriends that way too. And the last thing, secrecy, which is so important, is that whatever I say stays here. And so I know in my life there's been a few incidences where I walk in the afternoon, most afternoons with a very dear friend of mine, and in that afternoon walks, it's becoming. I think we're more addicted to the conversations and the walking because we know that lots of things we mull over things and we think about stuff, and it's easier to speak because it's like there's this expectation of there's symmetry. We know we support and we know what we say to each other is going to be safe because we're saying it. And I think when one of those elements are missing, you cannot be authentic. So, for example, I can say to a friend, "Oh, I really want to go to Australia," maybe, for example. Why would that be hard to say to Cameron, who's my partner? Because maybe in my mind, he's thinking, hey, we've got priorities, we've got bills to pay. Maybe there's bigger things we need to say. And so my desire or saying that I'd like to go to Australia, I feel he's going to just say it's rubbish. But it's not even the truth because I haven't even given him the opportunity. So it's more the fear of rejection, the more the fear of he's not going to understand. Whereas because my friend in my brain has symmetry, support, and secrecy, oh no, she's going to understand it. So I think it's a lot to do that we think for the other person who hasn't even said anything, we're just assuming things of that person.
But the funny thing is sometimes that is a feeling I like. I like what you said. You said it's a feeling that your friend has got your back.
Yeah, it's not real. It's not always reality.
In some cases that is true, but like Jill said now, that is not always the reality. It's an illusion of the truth. And that is sometimes where the wheel starts coming off because we start sharing things with people who we're not supposed to be sharing things with. And we're confiding in people, and are they living with our secrets or our information and feedback? And like we've been chatting over the last while, I've become so wary of who I share and what I share with people. And it's actually wrong for me because we need to be sharing with people because that's how we build on one another and how we make one another stronger. But if you're finding yourself in a situation whereby you become a target almost for someone else, or there's jealousy or underlying jealousy that may be masked by other things, then we have a problem because then your well-being is not actually what your friend really wants, and you're sharing these things and thoughts and ideas, but they're actually not looking out for you. So we need to be very wise in what we share with people these days. And what I've also feel that being outside of South Africa, we tend to gravitate towards our own, meaning people from our homeland, regardless of ethnicity or anything. It's just that we are South Africans and we want to get together and we want to do things. And often it is that very people, because of our history and our backgrounds, whether it's socio-economic, whether it's academic or whatever, the places we come from, we tend to hurt one another the most. And we somewhat think it's okay, and we break down things that may have been in place because of our own gain and what we want out of something, out of a friendship or something. And it's made me actually almost withdraw from people because you don't know what people are about. And like I said earlier on, it is actually wrong, and it has been making me think quite a bit about how we go about sharing with our spouse. In the sense, if we're married, then that should be our primary relationship. So we just need to think about, like, how do we actually focus on our spouse being that primary relationship.
And the other thing is, it's a part of life. You're gonna get hurt. You cannot have love without the consequence of the other. So you're never gonna know people are gonna hurt you until you walk that journey. So you have to fight to be. For relationships to work, you're gonna have to weather some storms sometimes, just to see where you're at. And I think marriage is probably a interesting place where you get to weather some storms. Like I think where I work now currently, I've got amazing relationships with great people because yeah, we can just be ourselves, we can be open. But they don't come home with me, and so they don't know what keeps me up at night. They don't know that I want to maybe be on a fitness journey. So there's parts of my life that they don't understand, or my faith journey. But you know what? I really get to enjoy doing life with them because we at work, we have the same goal. And so for me, I think authenticity is something that is lacking. Or something that a friend of mine and I call, we say truth talking, as in people think truth talking is being rude and being crass and just saying whatever that you like, not at the expense of, but like what Cam says, truth talking or telling to the point where I want to really help you be better and lift you up and raise you up. So it may be that, oh, this is shared with me by a friend, and I'm like, hey, you need to tell your spouse this. I think that's
Correct,
very
yeah.
important what you're saying. Thank you for sharing with me, but you need to treat your spouse because I think he would be. And you know what? I'm finding also, like, even in our last weeks of walking or whenever I'm with anybody, when we walk, it's like naturally things just come out. People talk, and just to listen. It's like sometimes there's no need for me to give feedback or to say what I think. Sometimes your partner or spouse just wants you to listen and hear, and maybe you should be saying, as the person who's listening, "Hey, do you want me to give you feedback? Do you want me just to listen to you?" Because I think there's also lots of things that we assume the other person must just know. You must just know, you must be quiet. I'm just telling you, you must just know, okay, now I want feedback. Sometimes you must say, I'm telling you this just to tell you. Like, I don't maybe want an answer right now. I'm just thinking about this. So this way my head's at. We
Yeah,
don't give
you
each other
don't.
enough grace because people can't
Yeah,
smell what you think.
you don't have to give an answer. And I think, like, this sharing of things sometimes, maybe in a context of a relationship or as a spouse, we try to avoid conflict. But then at the same time, in a friendship situation, we also try
Try.
and avoid conflict. And I think sometimes in the marriage relationship, you actually go down the road of conflict more easier than what you would do in a friendship setting. So in a friendship setting, you're trying to keep the peace and you would accommodate people to the extent where it becomes detrimental to yourself as an individual. And it's actually bad for your own mental health because you're trying to keep the peace to an extent, to such an extent that it becomes detrimental and is no longer a, a mutual relationship, but rather a one-sided relationship. So, in the sense of conflict, I think we have to face conflict, and there is differences of opinion of certain
Which
things.
is not conflict. Like I think that is the confusion that people are experiencing. That when we differ in opinion, doesn't mean that there's conflict. And what is conflict? Conflict is you've said something like I don't even understand. We calling conflict is like countries at war. That is considered conflict, not conversations that we have and people are
No,
abrupt and pulling themselves up and not liking.
correct. No, that
That is
is
not conflict. That's a difference. And I think we give such a powerful term as in it's a conflict. No, it's listen. Life has got challenges and difficulties, and we're gonna have difference of opinions. And like I said, we now to get divorced. We do not know how to untangle issues in terms of when we don't or when we feel aggrieved. And to say, like I chatted with a friend and to tell the person that I feel aggrieved. You know what? We had this conversation, but I felt leaving this way without saying, "Oh, you made me feel." You said, "You know
correct.
what? We had this conversation, and I
And
felt
this is
this
what it made
way.
me
Yeah,
feel.
this is what I felt. I could have taken this wrong, but maybe it's alluding to other feelings that I could have had. Like we never, and there's an honoring way to kind of have that conversation. There's an honoring way in terms of to let even though that person might have hurt you, like don't stoop as low as they do. Don't play that game of they hurt you, now you're gonna hurt them back.
Correct. Yes, not an eye for
If
an
you're
eye.
supposed to walk away, then gracefully walk away. Gracefully walk away where you can still see them in the street and know that there's no malice in your heart. If there's issues that's on them, you kind of don't want to continue in that relationship, for
But
example.
let us come down like why are issues created with people? It's because of people's opinions about things, their strong opinion about a certain thing, and education. People are uneducated on certain things and they do not understand things. And the people are not willing to put in the work to go and read and learn about something that they may have a difference of opinion about,
Yeah.
or willing to hear the other person out and actually learn about this thing together and why each person has a specific opinion. And when you come to certain places and actually be willing to learn something, then how are we going to get our nation to actually get to that point where we're actually willing to sign up to learn?
I think if you're not going to be someone of the teachable spirit, you're done on this earth, period, no matter how old you are. And I think that's the crux of it. That if you're in a journey relationship in any sense, if you're not going to have a posture of learning and a heart of openness that you don't know, it's arrogance and self righteousness that's going to lead you down a path where you're going to engage in conflict constantly, where you want to argue and be right.
Correct.
It's
Yeah.
when your posture of your heart is not
Without
to be
being
learning or to say, listen, I
correct.
don't know, I don't understand, or even to say, hey, I hear you, eh? I don't feel the same way you do. I don't understand where you're coming from, but I definitely hear you. So you give me space to work through this and also come to my own understanding. And I mean, we've had seasons like that where Cam would feel strongly about something and I would feel strongly the opposite. And then I'll tell him, you know what, it's 24 hours. I have thought about what you said, and yes, you make a lot of sense. And there was one such as a family matter, like a very heated family matter. It was not directly relating to us, but basically Cam had given advice on this family matter to someone in our family. And I just thought it was ludicrous. How can you get that advice? It's madness. And he let me voice my opinion. And 24 hours later, when I've calmed down, I could say, that was the best advice to give. It definitely was the best advice to give. I was just acting in my flesh and acting about, I think things were not fair. And it's the grace to also admit when you were wrong. And I think that's why friendships can, like my one friend works, she's quick to say, yo, I think I could have been wrong. Forgive me. I'm really sorry. And 9 out of 10 times she didn't even have to say that. But I think that the heart is always willingness to say, listen, I'm wrong. I'm open to it. Or I didn't
Correct.
know that I learned that from you. Or when I see a clip, because we're busy now, we're investigating movement and walking, not about losing weight and exercise, but what does movement do for your body and your mental health? We're busy watching videos. And it's so great to share things because, I don't know, we're both learning together. What does movement do? And what we can see is when you open up yourself, and which is supposed to be in your marriage, when you open up yourself to do life with someone, you actually want to be real with that person because when you're sick, it's not your friends. It's amazing if they are, but it's your family is the one that's actually going to look after you and carry you.
Correct.
And I think we misplace our loyalties and allegiance to people. And I was talking to Cam about this too. We were talking about when we're in these networks or circles or even faith communities where it becomes like there's a leader and there's this undue pressure and influence on you just to do what they say. No, everyone's got free will. If you don't want to, and when you say no and change your mind and the person berates you, that should be a warning sign that this is
Correct.
not the space you're supposed to be operating in. Because no, if you feel no for no reason, that should be respected. There's no gun, to your head to tell you you must and you shall and you will. You should always have free will. Well, especially in 2025, we shouldn't be slaves.
I think I think it's quite a difficult one. I think we are designed, or we find ourselves being slaves to everything. We're slaves to work. We're slaves to everything. So because we develop this slavery mentality, that is who we are. We're dependent on the government to give us support. We don't want to get up and go do something because we've been taught that there's going to be a handout. So so when Joel says free will, I think for some people it's very difficult to actually have free will. It's easier to follow than to lead. I always will tell Eden, are you the follower or are you the leader? Especially when it comes in the context of social media and YouTube and Facebook or whatever. Who are you? Are you the follower or the leader? You know what? Something that's been frustrating me about some of these social media platforms. I'm not interested in the guy that got 60 million views or the guy that has got a $25 billion company or $1 trillion company. I'm not interested in that guy because it's of no benefit to me. It's not going to make my life better because the context that that person is speaking from, that's not going to be my reality. Not today, not tomorrow, maybe not even in the next 100 years. But my reality is who is on a similar playing field than me or on a slightly higher level than what I am, or achieve something better. That is a goal that I can attain to. But I cannot easily become an Elon Musk because the circumstance around that, everything that's step that has been taken by Elon Musk is not my step. I have my own steps that I need to take. We all have our own steps that we need to take and a journey that we're on. And our journey will take us in certain directions. Perhaps in some other people's instances, they had a parent who was a multi-millionaire or a billionaire, trillionaire, and they had it all. But for the majority of the people in this world are like me. We're trying to make a living, we're trying to survive. And in some ways, we are slaves to the system that we currently find ourselves in. And to try and get that out of people to say that, look here, let us lead and let us be willing to take a stand. It's a very, very difficult thing because taking a stand can cost us something. It may cost us the friendship that we're trying to hold so dearly to because we're afraid that we won't find other friends. We're not willing to live in discomfort with our spouses because of something that we're wanting to do or achieve. So it becomes awkward. But I think that is kind of what we need to love in it and just be willing. If people don't like you, they don't like you. And that's just the way it is. Because whether they like you or they don't like you, I don't know how it's going to impact your life in the future. Yeah, maybe you may not get that opportunity, but so then that's fine. There's another opportunity. Maybe that's a better opportunity coming your way. But just be willing to live in discomfort and actually to take a stand for what you believe and not view it as conflict, I guess.
I think we use that term conflict too loosely. Countries at war in conflict. We don't have conflict. We're not supposed to be at war with anyone else.
But
I think it's just a matter of
I think countries at war, they just
if you
want
don't
to
get
kill
on,
people,
if you
man.
don't get on with someone, and there's not this like godly pursuit, or you really feel like in your bones, I need to be reaching out to friends with this person, then it's okay to keep your distance and just stay away from it. But that person doesn't bring out the best in you, and you angry every time you interact in you, and I feel the same about marriage. If you're angry all the time, and it's just please don't waste your time staying together, because for who are you staying together? You're just
Correct,
gonna
yeah.
drive everyone mad in the process. And so
It's a disservice to
we're
your
not
children.
advocating for the solution of marriages, but I think there's a lot of heartache where people are just staying together because everything is fake. My life is fake. My marriage is fake. It's all a farce. So to keep up this charade or game we're playing, and like Cam says, are you keeping the peace at home for what? You're so scared to walking on eggshells. I think anything where you cannot be yourself is a measure of control, and you're probably a slave to that process. Never mind,
Correct.
or
Yeah.
system, or the minute that there's no freedom and will to choose, those are things you should start asking yourself with. If I was free, would I choose this again? And I know that was my previous. There was no freedom. There was no feeling as a whole person. It's weird. And as you subscribe to that behavior, more and more is lost. More and more is lost, and less of you. You don't even look recognizable to who you were anymore because you don't know what it is because you conform into. So any place or institution that is calling you to control you really, where when you say no, there's a there's a harsh remark, there's something insinuated, there's a demonstration of we letting you know we're unhappy with you, we're displeased with you. No, then that's not where you're supposed to be.
Even in the context of speaking about things and discussing things, if you're unable to do that in a conversation, or you're consistently feeling like you cannot share your truth or your reality in your circle, that eventually is going to build up and actually cause resentment
Yeah.
for the next person, or the community that you find yourselves in, because you're not being your authentic self, like Joel was talking about earlier on. And I think we need to get to that point where we can authentically share with one another exactly where we are. If we involve the things, then say that we're involved in this, and that's it. It's for the other person to deal with it. But I don't think we must be keeping secrets either.
Yeah, and
Just
also say what you don't like. Say what
exactly.
you don't appreciate in the friendship. Like just because you want to like, I like what you're saying. Sometimes we think saying keeping the peace is just saying the nice things, but sometimes we keep the peace and we also don't say what we don't really appreciate, and we don't speak to me in that way, or
Correct.
don't first ask permission. Like simple things, but it's the don't part too. Not just to do the fact that we keep the peace, but we don't tell the truth because we're also trying to avoid
Yeah,
calamity or avoid an outburst, like you said.
you know, we're living in a world and a society that is sick. I mean, it is decently sick. Whatever organization exists out there can say that no, this world is progressive. This world is backwards, to be quite honest, because we first of all we want to kill people. We think that we own land that doesn't actually belong to us. We're trying to grab it and take it. We disrespect those around us. We mistreat people. We're abusing women and children, even men. We're barbarians. But until we get to the point where we can actually share our truth and heal ourselves mentally and from all the pains and the hurt, whether it's oppression of the past, whether it is being the beneficiary because of oppression of others, I think we need to all heal our minds and get to the point where we actually truly respect one another. Just the other day I was actually thinking about this other thing. If you come to my house and I know full well that that you don't understand a word of Afrikaans, and I just don't care and I just speak Afrikaans, I think that is a sign of disrespect and culturally poor. And yet, when we live in societies who say that we are culturally rich and sensitive to one another, but it's a lie. It's the biggest lie. If I come and you're welcoming me into your place and you don't speak a language that I understand, then I think it's a sign of disrespect. You've actually got no respect for the next person, but we're only willing to push our own agenda. So I think about some places that we find ourselves in. It's clear that that people respect one another, because the minute someone comes into the room who doesn't understand the language that we speak, immediately the language defaults to the common language, and in our instance the common language being English. And I think on that small level, we're just speaking of language here, it plays a major role in how we perceive the next person. And if we cannot get that cause right now, yeah, if we cannot see that as a sign of disrespect for one another, then we got more and bigger problems that are surrounding us, and we got a longer way to go in order to fix that issues that currently exist within our societies.
Yeah. It's being human, man. It's being considerate. It's being basic. Basic is if you don't understand. Basic is if I don't interpret. Then what's the point? You want the other person to be acknowledged. And so it comes back to the posture of your heart should be one of that to learn and to be we are constantly being educated on this earth while we are here. I said to someone today, while we're on this side of the grave, I firmly believe there's an ability to change. Once your number's been drawn and your time is up,
It's
too
done.
late, there's
Game
nothing that be
over.
done. So yes, we live in a world
You
where
know,
people make mistakes, people do silly stuff, people hurt feelings. You still have an opportunity to correct that behavior, but it's a posture of your heart. Do you sincerely want relationship? Then we at that age now, we be wanting authentic engagements. If we
correct.
pick up that you're not going to be authentic, I'm sorry, man. We won't have that much capacity to spend time with you. We'd like you, but we just don't have time right now to waste time. Is we don't have long on this earth, so you want to spend time with, and we
You
want that time to be meaningful.
correct. You know, the other day I was having a chat with Emil from Black Noise or from Hilderwood, and it was something that was actually intriguing, and it comes back to this issue of land and land claiming and things like that. And you know what it went around something like First Nations are shouting for land, but they have got the same idea of land ownership. What the people who came to steal the land from the First Nations people. There's not the original understanding of land ownership, that it was actually there for everyone to share. There's still the point of land ownership so that I can benefit, which is actually the way of the colonized world. And everywhere where that is happening, I think that is the case. We're actually wanting land for wealth, for ourselves, and not for the greater good of mankind. So when it comes to land things, I understand that it's a sensitive thing, even back in our own country, where our ancestors, where land was taken from them. And I think if we don't get to that point quicker, and if we're wanting to stop conflict in a world sense, never mind only in our relationship, I think we need to get to a point of where shared resources is the common understanding of everyone and not the wealth of a few, because that is going to be our demise going forward. And in so doing, I'm almost convinced that relationships will become better amongst one another, between our children, and equality becomes the more natural thing. But when we have lack and extreme wealth, there's issues. You're always going to have issues. And I even think of our home country. I mean, I think Cyril Ramaphosa said it clearly when in his addresses at the White House. There's criminality in South Africa. But the reason why there's criminality is because there's extreme poverty. And at the same time, there's wealth issues. So everybody's trying to grab wealth at the expense of someone else. And we create a society that has got problems. And unfortunately, that's maybe the work of the social architects. Then maybe that's the way they want it to be. But at the end of the day, it comes down to bite everyone, even their kids. So on what side of the fence do you want to fall? Do you want to fall on the side of the fence where you want the future of your kids to be beneficial, where your kids know how to deal with conflict and not to avoid conflict, and where they're not just trying to keep the peace and build resentment inside? Where is it that you actually want the future for your kids to be? Because your reality is drawn. We're living in it right now. But your kids and grandkids, what we decide today is what's going to shape the future tomorrow.